My name is Adrian Crowell. I'm 38 years old, a history professor at Providence College in Rhode Island. And for 8 years, I believed I had built a solid, honest life with my wife, Celine Armitage. We met during graduate school in 2015, married in 2017, and I truly thought we shared the same dreams. I poured every dollar I earned into our future together, even using part of my late grandfather's inheritance to buy our modest two-story colonial home on Elmwood Avenue in 2019. It wasn't extravagant, just $285,000, but it felt like a foundation for the life we were building. I've always been quiet, analytical, the type who avoids shouting or conflict. I rely on patience and logic, the same approach I bring into my classroom. My students respected that about me, and I believe Celine did as well. Only now do I realize that what I saw as strength, she mistook for weakness. That was my first mistake. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but I believed it was steady. We had rhythms I thought were comforting. Me grading papers in the evenings while she managed social media accounts for small businesses on Instagram and Facebook. We'd share dinner, watch Netflix, exchange simple conversations about our day. I mistook routine for security. The first cracks appeared in early 2024. Celine began taking trips she called women's retreats, weekend escapes to supposedly find herself and attend growth workshops. She returned with expensive jewelry, designer clothes, luxury handbags, items far beyond what her freelance income could justify. When I questioned it, she'd smile and claim she'd landed higher-paying clients. I trusted her. That was my second mistake. Then subtle financial inconsistencies emerged. $20 here, $50 there, unexplained cash withdrawals that didn't fit our usual spending. When I gently asked, she snapped, accusing me of micromanaging her, demanding financial freedom. And as always, I backed off. I was becoming a man who yielded to every storm, believing peace was worth silence. 2 months ago, in early July 2025, everything changed. It was a sweltering Tuesday evening, and I was reviewing lesson plans for the fall semester. Celine was unusually quiet at dinner, pushing food around her plate, eyes darting constantly to her phone. I should have seen the omen in her restlessness, but I was preoccupied with thoughts of revising my lecture on the American Revolution. "Adrian, we need to talk," she said, her voice stripped of warmth, flat and businesslike. She didn't look at me, her eyes fixed on a blank spot on the wall behind me. I set down my pen. "What's on your mind?" I asked. She inhaled sharply, as if reciting a scripted line. "I want a divorce." The words didn't echo, they struck. A punch delivered without movement. I kept my face neutral. Years of teaching had trained me to remain composed in unexpected moments. "Okay," I replied calmly. "Can we talk about what's wrong? What can we fix?" She shook her head. "There's nothing to fix. I'm done. I've already spoken to a lawyer." Of course she had. This wasn't a conversation. It was a verdict. "I see," I said, steadying myself. "What are you thinking in terms of arrangements?" For the first time that evening, her expression shifted, the mask slipping to reveal something ice-cold: calculation. The house will be mine. I contributed, and I need stability. I want 70% of our savings, and you'll pay alimony for 5 years. My lawyer says it's fair since I sacrificed my career for yours. Each demand felt like another blow. The house built for my grandfather's legacy. The savings filled by my $78,000 salary, while she claimed to be building her business. Alimony, for a woman who had never once supported my academic path. But it was her final words that truly carved the truth into me. She looked directly at me then, and her smile was glacial. "You're just a teacher, Adrian. You don't have the money for a real lawyer. You can't fight me." I sat in silence, absorbing not just her terms, but her contempt. The belief that 8 years of marriage could be discarded like an old receipt. "I understand," I said at last. My calm surprised her. Perhaps she expected rage or begging. Instead, I simply nodded. "I'll need time to process. We can revisit the details soon." "Sure," she replied, confident she had already won. That night, while she slept soundly beside me, I lay awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling. She was right about one thing. I couldn't afford a high-powered divorce attorney. But she had forgotten something far more important. I was not alone. She had no idea about my brother, Lucian Draven. 4 years older, one of the most feared divorce attorneys in Rhode Island. We hadn't spoken in almost a decade. Not since our father's funeral in 2016, when bitter words severed our bond. He believed I wasted my potential in academia. I believe he'd sold his soul to the legal elite. Perhaps we were both right. But Lucian was brilliant, ruthless, and relentless, the kind of lawyer who charged $450 an hour and was worth every cent. He specialized in high-stakes divorces, dismantling CEOs and politicians with surgical precision. The morning after Celine's ultimatum, I sat in my office, combing through every financial record I could find. As a historian, I am trained to uncover truths buried between lines, to reconstruct hidden realities from fragments. I applied that skill to my marriage. And what I found over the past 18 months was far more than carelessness. It was a pattern, a trail, a betrayal I was finally prepared to confront. Always in amounts just under $500, small enough to slip beneath the radar of automatic alerts. Those withdrawals began forming a pattern that aligned with her so-called retreats. But even more revealing were the credit card charges I had never bothered to scrutinize until then. Lavish dinners at upscale Boston restaurants, hotel bookings in Hartford, luxury jewelry purchases in Manhattan. All made on weekends. She claimed to be journaling by lake cabins and meditating with women's circles. A sickening clarity settled over me. I called Marcus Thompson, a close friend and meticulous CPA who had helped with my taxes for years. "Marcus, I need a favor," I said, my voice steadied and I felt. "Can you take a look at some bank statements?" Informally. There was a pause. "What's going on, Adrian?" he asked. "Celine wants a divorce. I admitted I need to understand what I'm dealing with before I respond." He agreed to meet that afternoon. When I laid everything out, withdrawals, charges, dates, Marcus let out a low, sharp whistle. "Adrian, this looks like systematic diversion of marital assets. This isn't random. She's been funding something significant or someone. How significant?" I asked, barely breathing. He punched numbers into his calculator. "At least $32,000 over 18 months. Maybe more if she has accounts you don't know about. $32,000. Nearly half of our savings. Money I believe was paying bills and supporting her supposed clients, now exposed as breadcrumbs leading to betrayal. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in nearly a decade. I looked at my brother. His law firm's website, Draven, Walsh & Associates, radiated prestige and calculated power. He was everything he'd set out to become. Feared, respected, surgically precise in the courtroom. Success suited him, and for a moment, bitterness flickered. While I'd chosen lectures and quiet campuses, he'd conquered boardrooms and battlefields of divorce. But pride was meaningless now. I found his direct office number. I stared at my phone for 20 minutes before dialing. 3 rings. Lucian Draven. His voice was deeper, seasoned with authority. "Lucian, it's Adrian." A long pause. "Adrian, it's been a while." 9 years, I said. 9 years, he echoed. "What's the occasion?" Weariness lingered in his tone. Pleasantries between us had long since died. "I need help. Legal help." Another pause. "What kind?" "Celine wants a divorce. She's making aggressive demands. And I think she's been diverting assets to fund an affair." Silence stretched so long, I thought he'd disconnected. When he finally spoke, his voice had shifted, measured, sharp. "That's a serious allegation, Adrian. Are you sure?" "I have bank statements, transaction logs." Marcus Thompson reviewed them. He sees a pattern. "Marcus is good," Lucian murmured. "If he sees something, it's real. But tell me, why are you calling me?" The question hovered like a weight between us, years of distance pressing down. "Because despite everything, you're still my brother. And because she looked me in the eye and told me I was powerless. I intend to prove her wrong." Another silence. Then something subtle, almost imperceptible, shifted. "All right, send me what you have. No promises yet. If I see something, we talk terms." "Thank you." I said quietly. Don't thank me, he replied. Thank me if we win. The next month, I became an archaeologist of my own life. Every receipt, email, statement, sorted, labeled, compiled. Lucian's early analysis was damning enough for him to take the case, though he warned me. James Morrison is her attorney. He doesn't waste time on losers. If he's confident, it means she convinced him she's righteous, which works for us. She's lying to him, too. He hired Sarah Martinez, a former detective, to trace Celine's trail. While Sarah investigated, Lucian crafted strategy with the precision of a surgeon. Between us, our conversation remained professional, distant. But beneath his stern explanations, I caught glimpses of the brother I once knew. It's not enough to show she spent the money, he said. We must prove intent, premeditated fraud. That changes everything. 3 weeks in, Sarah delivered the blow. The dinners weren't random. They matched the travel schedule of a man named David Walsh, a pharmaceutical sales rep from Hartford, divorced, frequently on the road. His LinkedIn travel dates aligned perfectly with Celine's retreats. She's been with him for over a year, Sarah said. Hotel logs confirm it. Jewelry matches their anniversaries. She's not just cheating, she's living 2 lives. Lucian leaned back, eyes narrowed at the evidence. Morrison thinks this is a standard dissolution. He has no idea his client is committing fraud. So what do we do? I asked. We wait, he said. Let them file their demands. Then we detonate. The hearing was set for a Thursday morning in late July at Providence County Family Court. Celine had pushed her urgency, confident I'd appear alone, unrepresented, broken, cornered. She was about to learn what history has taught me best. The quiet man you underestimate is often the one already plotting your undoing. I arrived at 8:30 a.m., half an hour early. The courthouse loomed, all stone and gravity, a cathedral of consequence. I wore my best Navy suit, heart steady, hands calm. Ahead, Celine stood with Morrison, reviewing papers, utterly certain of victory. She never saw Lucian stepping beside me, not until it was far too late. She was dressed for battle, sharp black business suit, hair pulled back so tightly it looked like armor, her entire presence radiating cold control, the kind that warned anyone nearby she had already decided the outcome. When she saw me approaching, her expression flickered with something close to pity, that practice look people wear when they believe they're being merciful while delivering a blow. Adrian, she said, voice dipped in false warmth, I hope you had time to consider our proposal. We can still settle this amicably. Before I could respond, James Morrison stepped forward, exactly as I had imagined. Expensive charcoal suit, steel handshake, confident smirk that never touched his eyes. Mr. Crowell, I'm James Morrison. I represent your wife. I understand you're proceeding without counsel. Actually, I said quietly, glancing at my watch, my attorney should be here any moment. Celine's eyebrows rose, her voice sharp with disbelief. Attorney? Adrian, we discussed this. You can't afford. She froze. The moment her eyes lifted to the end of the corridor, her face drained of color. Lucian had arrived. He moved through the courthouse hallway like a force of gravity in human form, every step deliberate, every gaze turning in his direction. Impeccable charcoal gray suit, Italian leather briefcase, composure carved from stone. At 42, my brother was the kind of presence that parted crowds without a word. Sorry I'm late, he said, shaking my hand with unspoken solidarity. Traffic was hell on I-95. Morrison's face went through several shades of dawning horror. Lucian Draven, you're representing Mr. Crowell? That's right, Lucian replied, his voice professional ice. Adrian Crowell is my client, and my brother. The silence that followed crashed through the hallway. Conversations halted. Attorneys turned. Celine stood utterly still, her composure fractured. Morrison's confidence recalculated itself in real time. I wasn't aware Mr. Crowell had retained counsel of your caliber, he muttered. Well, Lucian said coolly, now you are. Shall we? The courtroom felt smaller than I anticipated, yet somehow vast, like an arena where destinies were weighed. Judge Patricia Patterson, stern, seasoned, and intolerant of performance, regarded us with measured interest. "Good morning. I have a petition for dissolution of marriage filed by Mrs. Celine Armitage Crowell against Mr. Adrian Crowell. Mrs. Crowell is represented by Mr. Morrison. Mr. Crowell is represented by—" She paused, eyebrows arching. "Mr. Lucian Draven. This is unusual." Morrison stepped forward quickly. "Your Honor, we're seeking a straightforward dissolution with reasonable terms." "Mr. Draven," she interrupted. Lucian rose with calm precision. "Indeed, Your Honor, we are filing a counterpetition, including serious allegations. My client has discovered evidence of systematic diversion of marital assets by Mrs. Crowell to fund an extramarital relationship. We request a full financial audit, reimbursement of misappropriated funds, and sanctions for fraudulent concealment." The air thinned. Paper stopped rustling. Celine's hands gripped the table, her knuckles bone-white. "That is a serious allegation," Judge Patterson said. "Do you have documentation?" "Extensive," Lucian replied. "Bank records, statements, hotel receipts, travel logs, and photographic evidence. We also have testimony from a private investigator regarding her relationship with one David Walsh of Hartford, Connecticut." Celine flinched at the name, as if struck. Morrison leaned in to whisper frantically, but she stared ahead, eyes glassy, composure shattered. "Your Honor," Morrison stammered, "we need time to review." This was supposed to be a routine dissolution. Judge Patterson's tone hardened. "Mr. Morrison, your client requested 70% of assets, 5 years alimony, and sole ownership of the marital home. That is not routine." Lucian stepped forward, voice cutting clean. "Mrs. Crowell demands alimony while spending $32,000 of marital funds on Mr. Walsh. She wants the home while depleting the savings that built it. This is not dissolution, Your Honor. It is an attempted heist." The words echoed like a gavel before the gavel. Even I felt their impact. Judge Patterson exhaled stern judgment. "I am ordering a full financial audit of both parties over 2 years. Mrs. Crowell is prohibited from disposing of assets. We will reconvene in 6 weeks." As proceedings adjourned, I watched Celine's strategy crumble, her poised certainty dissolving into panic. Outside, Morrison pulled her aside, his tone sharp, accusatory. She gestured wildly, desperate. But he only shook his head, realizing too late he'd been lied to. Lucian stood beside me, hands in pockets, eyes steady, not triumphant, but resolute. In that moment, I understood this wasn't just legal war. It was a quiet, devastating correction of a woman who believed I was a man with no weapons. She forgot I was a historian, and history remembers everything. "She's about to fire her attorney," he murmured, barely moving his lips. "How can you tell?" I asked, though I already sensed something had changed. "Body language," he replied, eyes fixed on her. Morrison just realized she made him look incompetent in front of Judge Patterson. He has a reputation to protect. He won't let a deceitful client ruin it. And just as he predicted, Morrison abruptly stepped away from Celine, his expression cold and resolute, heading toward the parking garage without a backward glance. She remained on the courthouse steps, shoulders slumped, eyes darting with confusion and desperation. For the briefest moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. Lucian packed his briefcase with methodical precision. "Now we wait for the audit results and prepare for the final hearing." She wanted a war, Adrian. But wars have consequences. She's about to learn what it means to underestimate a Crowell. For the first time in weeks, a faint, genuine smile touched my face. It felt like breathing after being underwater. The 6 weeks that followed passed swiftly but heavily. The court-ordered financial audit was brutal, conducted by a forensic accountant who dissected every financial trail with microscopic detail. Every transfer, every hidden purchase, every suspicious withdrawal was unearthed. Meanwhile, Sarah continued to dig into Celine's affair with David Walsh, and what we discovered went beyond betrayal. The audit revealed she had funneled nearly $44,000 over 18 months, far more than the $32,000 we originally suspected. She had opened a secret credit card in her maiden name, taken cash advances, and used our joint account to cover the payments. She forged my signature on a home equity loan, borrowing $18,000 against our home. But the final blow came from Walsh himself. Sarah tracked him down at a pharmaceutical conference in Boston, and when faced with the threat of being implicated in fraud, he surrendered everything: messages, hotel receipts, photos, intimate exchanges. Most damning of all, he confirmed that Celine had told him she was already divorced and receiving alimony from me. She had lied to everyone, weaving lies until they strangled her. 2 weeks before the hearing, Morrison officially withdrew as her counsel, citing irreconcilable differences. In truth, he discovered her deception and refused to sync with her. She scrambled and found a junior associate from a low-tier firm, a young attorney named Robert Hayes, who specialized in simple separations, not financial warfare. During that time, something I never expected happened. Lucien and I began to soften. What began as strict legal updates slowly turned into quiet talks over coffee. We spoke of Dad, of years wasted in silence, of wounds that suddenly seemed smaller. "I owe you an apology," I told him one afternoon. "What I said at the funeral about your career, I was wrong. You built something real." He stirred his cup thoughtfully. "And I was wrong about academia. You found your purpose. That matters more than winning. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning." When the final court date arrived in early September, the contrast was striking. Celine, once poised and calculating, now appeared hollow, her eyes sunken, hope drained. Hayes looked terrified, shuffling papers with trembling hands, constantly glancing at Lucien like prey facing a predator. Judge Patterson reviewed the audit results with patient gravity. "Mrs. Crowell," she said sternly, "records indicate you diverted marital assets for personal use during an extramarital relationship. Do you dispute these findings?" Hayes leaned in, whispering frantically before standing. "Your Honor, my client acknowledges certain financial irregularities, but believes her asset requests remain fair." Lucien rose, voice steady and sharp. "Your Honor, these are not irregularities. This is fraud. She forged my client's signature, opened secret accounts, and systematically stole to fund an affair. This extends beyond divorce. It borders on criminal conduct." The word criminal struck like a bolt. Hayes went pale. Celine's grip whitened her knuckles. Even I felt a chill. Judge Patterson's tone hardened. "Mr. Draven, are you implying criminal referral?" Lucien didn't blink. "I'm stating, Your Honor, that while her actions qualify as felony fraud, my client seeks restitution over prosecution." It was masterful. Mercy offered as a final warning. Hayes begged for a recess. I watched Celine pleading desperately, but when they returned, her fire was gone. "Your Honor," Hayes said quietly, "my client accepts the revised settlement. The terms destroyed everything she demanded. No alimony, the house to be sold and split only after repaying stolen funds. Personal belongings retained, but legal fees, $18,500, paid to Lucien. Most importantly, she signed a release acknowledging her misconduct and relinquishing future claims. When Judge Patterson signed the final order, I felt something unfamiliar. Peace. Not victory. Just release. Outside, she approached me one last time. Her lover had abandoned her. Her friends vanished. Her reputation in ruins. "Adrian," she whispered, voice trembling, "I never meant for it to go this far." I looked at her, at the remnants of the woman I once loved. "Yes, you did, Celine. You just never believed I would stand and fight." She had no answer. A week later, I moved into my own modest home in Federal Hill. It was small, but it was mine, legally, quietly, fully. For the first time in years, I felt free. But the greatest restoration wasn't financial. It was my brother. Lucien and I began to meet regularly, rebuilding something we had nearly lost forever. One evening over dinner, he said quietly, "I used to wonder if you chose the right path. Now I see you found peace. That's something I never had." His respect meant more than any legal outcome. I later heard Celine had fled to Florida under a new name. Walsh had moved on, searching for another escapade. The house we once lived in was sold to a young family who would fill its rooms with laughter instead of lies. I never saw her again. I never wanted to. Her greatest mistake was confusing silence with weakness. She mistook kindness for naivety, not understanding that some battles are not fought with rage, but with patience and truth. My name is Adrian Crowell. I'm 38, still teaching history, still guiding students through wars on paper, knowing now what real conflict costs. Celine tried to tear everything from me, but in the end, she gave me something far greater. My brother, my peace, my integrity. The best revenge, I learned, isn't what you take from your enemies. It's what they lose while trying to destroy you.